Bilderberg 2015, Mystery Surrounds Shadowy Globalist Summit. Written by Alex Newman. 14 June 2015. A shadowy collection of globalists embedded throughout centers of power worldwide: political, military, banking, media, intelligence, business, academia, and more wrapped up their annual Bilderberg Summit on June 14 in Telfs-Buchen, Austria. The secrecy-obsessed confab has been receiving increased attention, relatively speaking, even from the establishment press in recent years, following decades of complete silence. This year was no exception. But what humanity's alleged public servants and self-appointed masters were discussing behind closed doors and armies of taxpayer-funded security officially remains a mystery, potentially in violation of numerous laws such as the U.S. Logan Act. Essentially, though, your future and the future of your nation were on the agenda. The key topics on the official agenda released to the public included a number of vague but alarming subjects to anyone concerned about the inordinate power wielded by Bilderberg attendees. Among the topics listed, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, chemical weapons, current economic issues, European strategy, globalization, Greece, Iran, the Middle East, NATO, Russia, terrorism, the United Kingdom, the United States, and even U.S. elections. In its 2015 press release, following similar releases issued in recent years amid escalating public outrage over the paranoid secrecy surrounding the annual summits, the Bilderberg leadership noted that around 140 participants from 22 countries were planning to attend. However, despite pretenses of increased transparency, virtually nothing is known publicly about what the money changers and the self-appointed masters of the universe, as the UK Guardian's Kevin McKenna described them, were plotting at their mega-luxury hotel, shown. Only bankers, the CEOs of multinationals and Western political leaders who have been on their payroll for a minimum of 10 years get to attend, McKenna wrote in a sarcastic and humorous piece. Of course, key establishment media operatives are also invited to attend, but only under conditions of strict secrecy. Along with the journalists, editors, propagandists, and media magnates were prime ministers, foreign ministers, defense ministers, top globalist bureaucrats, a president, CEOs, royalty, and even some convicted globalist criminals. Anti-U.S. sovereignty fanatic General David Petraeus for good measure. At this year's summit, a variety of media outlets sent reporters, including the UK Guardian, InfoWars, American Free Press, some local outlets, and others. As has generally been the case, reporters and even locals were treated with disdain, hostility, and suspicion by the tax-funded security operatives guarding the globalists inside. More than 2,000 police, paid for with public funds, were reportedly on hand to guard the paranoid globalists against a handful of protesters, reporters, and local residents at the resort. The security was so on edge that a Cobra officer reportedly accidentally fired an assault rifle at a police helicopter flying overhead. The Guardian's Charlie Skelton, who has humorously covered multiple Bilderberg confabs over the years, was harassed by police complete with an armored personnel carrier and military helicopters overhead amid repeated searches of his hotel, vehicle, papers, and more. InfoWars reporters Rob Dew and Josh Owens were also visited by police as Bilderberg organizers exhibit growing levels of paranoia about the public, in addition to being constantly followed and harassed throughout the three-day confab. Even an 11-year-old boy playing in the woods was reportedly terrorized by the paranoid security operatives. According to news reports, Bilderberg security teams even erected a jamming system to block communications in the vicinity of the Interalpen hotel where the summit took place, reportedly to further hamper media coverage. Apparently, Bilderberg is so afraid of media coverage that police checkpoints miles away from the hotel are not enough. Now they have resorted to installing expensive devices which shut down communications, presumably at taxpayer expense, reported InfoWars editor Paul Joseph Watson. A communications expert source also told InfoWars that the system can also be used to monitor communications, Watson added in an update. despite numerous past statements by participants indicating that Bilderberg meetings and attendees help guide policy around the world. The official press release framed the gathering as a mere discussion forum. Founded in 1954, the Bilderberg Conference is an annual meeting designed to foster dialogue between Europe and North America, it claimed. The conference is a forum for informal discussions about major issues facing the world. The meetings are held under the Chatham House Rule, which states that participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speaker, nor of any other participant may be revealed. And indeed, the secrecy is tight, with journalists generally left to speculate about what their taxpayer-funded government officials are plotting behind closed doors with so-called banksters, media barons, big business crony capitalists, and other assorted globalists. Bilderberg's press release, though, framed it all as a positive development, perfectly illustrating the chasm that exists between the thinking of summit attendees and the rest of humanity. Thanks to the private nature of the conference, the participants are not bound by the conventions of their office or by pre-agreed positions, the statement said. As such, they can take time to listen, reflect and gather insights. In the official release, Bilderberg bigwigs also claimed, there is no desired outcome, no minutes are taken and no report is written. Furthermore, no resolutions are proposed, no votes are taken, and no policy statements are issued, it also said. However, those claims fly in the face of a wide array of public statements by numerous Bilderberg attendees. For example, in 2010, former NATO boss and two-time Bilderberg attendee Willie Claes said in a radio interview that reports of speeches given at the summit are, in fact, compiled. The participants are then obviously considered to use this report in setting their policies in the environments in which they affect, Claes added, which analysts said was essentially an admission that Bilderberg attendees are secretly plotting your future behind closed doors. In other words, somebody is lying, either the official Bilderberg press release or the attendees. There are plenty of other statements that also contradict the official narrative. The year before Claes' admission, then Bilderberg chairman Etienne d'Avignon, a former European Union commissaire and Belgian Minister of State, told the online New Observer that the summits helped create the controversial euro currency imposed on 17 formerly sovereign European nations. Much evidence also suggests that the summits played a major role in foisting a superstate on the peoples of Europe against their will, a process that continues despite the lack of public support. More recently, despite protestations to the contrary, a Bilderberg attendee and the leader of the Socialist International-aligned Dutch Labour Party admitted on camera at last year's summit that he was there in his official capacity as parliamentary leader. Asked if he was there in an informal capacity, he responded, "Well, I am formal, because being a politician, you are 24/7, so there's no way of exiting my role." The Bilderberg website claimed, by contrast, participants take part in the conference as individuals in their own right. But the comments by the Dutch lawmaker and sustainability zealot Dieter Xamsem suggested otherwise. More than 15 years ago, far-left Bilderberg attendee Will Houghton, a former British newspaper editor, pro-EU extremist, and vehement opponent of American conservatism, also hinted at the influence of the gathering. Bilderberg is one of the key meetings of the year, he wrote in 1998. The consensus established is the backdrop against which policy is made worldwide. The admission could not get much clearer than that despite claims in the official release about the confab, summit attendees themselves have regularly boasted that Bilderberg does, in fact, plot policy behind the backs of the very same people who pay their salaries and are expected to submit to their extremist policy. Bilderberg also downplayed its extraordinary guest list. Every year, between 120-150 political leaders and experts from industry, finance, academia and the media are invited to take part in the conference, it said. About 2/3 of the participants come from Europe and the rest from North America, approximately 1/3 from politics and government and the rest from other fields. While largely accurate, at least technically speaking, the truth is that, combined, attendees represent many of the world's top power brokers and wield vast power over humanity. Among others at this year's summit were top technology giant executives, former EU Commission boss and ex-Maoist revolutionary leader José Manuel Barroso, representatives of big oil, big banking, big media, big government, and more. For the semi-complete official guest list, which often omits key participants, visit the official Bilderberg site. Of course, activists from across the political spectrum have long argued that Americans at the confab are feloniously violating the Logan Act. That federal law specifically bars any U.S. citizen without formal government permission from working with foreign officials on matters of policy. Passed under the John Adams administration in 1799, the Logan Act was amended as recently as the 1990s and, despite almost never being used, remains on the books today. And that, Bilderberg opponents say, means that Americans meeting with foreign officials at the secretive gathering should be investigated and eventually prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law found to be in violation of it. As admitted by myriad attendees, practically the entire summit revolves around policy. Violators can be imprisoned for up to 3 years. Other nations also have laws about working on policy behind closed doors with special interests. What sort of policy do the Bilderberg globalists have in mind? Well, examining their actions outside the secret meetings certainly provides a good clue. But in 2001, former British Chancellor of the Exchequer and Bilderberg bigwig Denis Healey gave a relatively concrete answer. He told the UK Guardian that it was a little exaggerated, but not wholly unfair to say that the outfit's overall goal was essentially to impose a global government on humanity. Those of us in Bilderberg felt we couldn't go on forever fighting one another for nothing and killing people and rendering millions homeless, he claimed. So we felt that a single community throughout the world would be a good thing. By community, globalists really mean government after all. The European Union was the European community before the full-blown superstate was openly announced. As governments around the world influenced by Bilderberg attendees continued to wage war on the privacy rights and other liberties of everyday citizens, perhaps the time has come for everyday citizens, acting through their governments, to strip the privacy rights of Bilderberg attendees and their summit. After all, if they having nothing to hide, they should have no problem with losing their privacy. At least that is what they and their minions constantly tell the rest of humanity to justify the increasingly lawless and Orwellian surveillance of the public. The globalists in attendance should practice what they preach. If they continue to refuse, Americans and Europeans should use their remaining freedoms to ensure that transparency and legitimate government prevail.